Welcome to this edition of Techies Talks, which we are having in association with NetApp, the global company focused on delivering intelligent data infrastructure. Of course, AI is what everyone is talking about today, but as organizations look to move to AI solutions across systems and processes, they often face roadblocks in terms of availability and usability of data, compatibility of existing systems, and skill sets of employees. Today, we will discuss how organizations can prepare for moving to AI-based solutions seamlessly and have a smooth transition to future-ready tools. And we have a great panel of professionals to discuss this. We have Gaurav Makkar. Gaurav is Engineering Director at NetApp. He also leads us cyber resilience and ransomware protection engineering at NetApp. He has close to 3 decades of industry experience, of which 18 years have been with NetApp. Gaurav recently completed a certification or specialization in deep learning from IISc. How long ago was that?
Oh, so this was, I think I completed last November, and it was a year-long program.
Fantastic. We have Prinkan Pal. Prinkan is founder of LegoAI, which is trying to simplify AI for enterprises. LegoAI was part of NetApp's accelerator program for startups recently, the latest batch. Prinkan has spent a decade and a half in the data and AI industry, including with the analytic solutions venture Bridge I2I, which was acquired by Accenture. Prinkan then worked at Accenture for some time. Hi, Prinkan. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have Dhanrajani. Samir is founder of AIQRATE, right?
That's correct.
And 3AI. AIQRATE works with GCCs to curate and define state-of-art AI, Gen AI capabilities and centers of excellence. 3AI is a platform for AI and analytics leaders, professionals and aspirants. And Samir says there are some over 30,000 people who are part of the platform now, right, Samir?
That's correct.
Samir was previously Chief Strategy Officer at Fractal Analytics, the Analytics and Data Sciences, and also the Analytics and Data Sciences Business Unit leader at Cognizant. Welcome, Samir.
Thank you.
Really nice having all of you.
Thanks.
Gaurav, can I first start by asking you, is
Sure.
it very important to adopt AI solutions quickly, become an AI-first organization quickly? Is there any challenges if you remain status quo, you don't adopt these solutions quickly?
Sure. So this is from my vantage point and our vantage point from a NetApp perspective too, by the way. But what we're seeing in the industry is that there is a huge gap between, let's say, decisions and arriving at those decisions and information that is actually available or the data that is actually available. There's a huge gap going from data to the point of decision. And we've been, as an industry, by the way, we've been telling everyone, right, across whatever nature of the industry, that, hey, you know what? Do digital transformation. What does digital transformation mean? Go collect data fundamentally, right? So you've collected a lot of data. Now it's almost humanly impossible to analyze that data to get to the decision. Because why we asked folks to actually collect data was so that you can actually get to a decision which is much more informed, right? So the AI piece is really that bridges the gap between the data to the decision. Fundamentally, that's the story. Thereafter, it's about top-line growth, bottom-line efficiencies. There's a lot of possibilities. But that's how I see as the fundamental gap, or why now is a great time, because most of the companies have actually gone down the path of digital transformation. They have the data, but they don't really have automated decisions, right? And more insightful decisions, right? To further power their businesses.
Automated and more insightful decisions, and that can be far better than what humans can do with the kind of data that is being generated. Samir and Prinkan, tell me, I mean, both of you are in this area, been there for a long time. It's easy to say automated and get insightful decisions and all that, but in terms of actually implementing these solutions, are there a lot of challenges? Firstly, as Gaurav was saying, you have to collect all that data, and I assume you also need to organize it in a particular way and all that. That's one part of it. That itself, I don't know if everybody does that already, or even that needs to be done. And subsequently, what are the biggest challenges that you typically find organizations facing when they try to go an AI path?
In my experience, one of the primary challenges that organizations come across is, like Gaurav said, that let's collect the data and harmonize and all of that. And organizations have spent millions of dollars trying to build sustainable data platforms. At least they call it sustainable. What happens is when you are talking about decisions from data, the businesses or the business leads, they are very clear on the objectives of the top line KPIs that they want to drive. Now, if they come and say that, okay, what is my data saying if I have to make a decision on where should I spend my next $100,000 or $1 million in terms of marketing spend, which are the right channels? I'm taking one of such examples, right? It really translates into that business requirement needs to get translated into something we call as analytical requirement, which then gets translated into an analytical solution. And then it gets translated into a final business solution, which is that automated solution, which can be consumed by a non-technical business user. Now, in this process, while there are so much of data and companies have built these platforms, the moment business starts asking these questions, they still have a lot of dependency on skilled talent, like specialized talent, like data engineers, data scientists, to really come and say that, okay, what are those data points? How do I put them together? What models do I need to build? Which are those specific features based on which this decision should be made? And once a decision is made, what is the efficacy of that decision, right? This process is still a very cumbersome and a time-consuming process. And that is where the question still starts coming in, that we have spent so much, but why we are still taking months to answer these basic questions? So somewhere, data has been gathered, data has been acquired, but it has not been organized or structured meaningfully is one of the problem. The quality that is inherent in the way it has been captured is not up to a level where you can seamlessly put an auto ML solution of sorts to really make a business decision, right? Because if I take draw a parallel to Netflix, when we watch movies on Netflix, we get movie recommendations. But now think about you are having a recommendation engine in a business, in an enterprise, which is going to tell you that which are those SKUs that you should bundle in a certain way for this customer. The cost of that recommendation going wrong in a Netflix is not as high as the cost of recommendation going wrong in an enterprise. And that is where the prescriptiveness, the accuracy, all of it matters. And companies are still struggling to build such kind of sustainable solutions which are enterprise ready and completely autonomous.
Okay, I will go a little deeper into that and each of those things that you said. I like that point. I mean, Netflix, it doesn't really matter what recommendations. Half the time, I don't feel that I want to watch some of their recommendations. But in enterprises, you have to be absolutely correct. Otherwise, you get things so wrong.
Yeah.
Samir, you agree with...
So I have a very provocative answer to this entire thing. If I ask three of you gentlemen, what's the most fragile thing about humans? Any answers?
I don't know, very emotional or something?
Yeah, I think the most fragile
biases.
thing... Biases,
Okay.
Emotional, anything? Prinkan? And Sujit, I know you're the moderator.
I would.
So, if you really take it, it's the ego.
Yeah.
Now, this is exactly what ChatGPT has done for all of us. It's tickled our ego, where whatever decision so far we were taking, that particular thing called ChatGPT is taking today. Which is what, to Prinkan's point and Gaurav's point, it's called democratization of intelligence. Now, in a brass tack mode, when we look at AI, it's nothing but sophistication of image, voice, text, and video. Because the new data sources have come in, which is nothing but you're mimicking the human brain. Now, from a corporate perspective, the fact, first of all, is, without hurting the ego side, is we are used to taking decisions basis our gut, intuition, historical evidences, empirical kind of, let's say, data points. But subtly, Now, a AI engine or AI system challenges the status quo and says that, look, in the boardrooms, maybe I can take decisions better than you. And it's happening. Some of the hedge funds, some of the kind of PVC firms are actually making algorithms sit in the boardrooms, taking decisions on the behalf of the board or along with the board, because so much of crunching data has gone into over the last 20, 25 years, which has made the machine very abled. Now, what is important today is that just like careers and relationship, if I call it relationship that way, AI is a marathon, not a 100-meter sprint, which is where many of the organization, in the midst of FOMO factor or catching up that kind of a, let's say, slugfest, lose that essence of what Prinkan and Gaurav rightly said is building the foundational intelligence, which is nothing but the platform, the tooling and plumbing. Because if that layer of foundation of data sets, engineering is not solid, the right AI engines will not fire. Let me stop at that first.
Okay. So it's a marathon, and companies should be aware of that. It's just not a 100-meter sprint. I want to go into some of the things, starting with the data point that all of you mentioned. That's really the foundation. Prinkan used the word organize that data and structure it in a particular way. You yourself are in that business of
Yep.
all of that. How important is that? How do you do it? How much
Sure.
time will it take?
I can take a stab and then.
Yeah.
So, we talk about data very loosely. Data isn't one kinds, right? So, for example, I'll take an analogy here. When you talk about, let's say, a video, that is one data. Something that actually describes the video is called metadata. That's the second kind of data. The third kind of data is that video, let's say, is being played on YouTube. YouTube generates something called telemetry data as a result of operating that, let's say, video over there.
Telemetry data would be?
Telemetry is when a system is operating, it is spewing out some exhaust. That exhaust that it spews out is telemetry data, right? So essentially, just the data itself is classified into the core data, right? The metadata that describes the data, and telemetry that actually helps, or when a system is running or working with this data, right, in a real system, that system is actually spewing out some telemetry data, which is an exhaust, right? How you handle each of them, by the way, first of all, the characteristics of each of them are very different, right? And how you then handle them and what techniques that you actually apply, right, to gain insights from that. And what can, let's say, for example, can the video itself, if you just analyze that, it's video is about the content itself. You can actually say, hey, this video is about a lecture about, let's say, an algorithm being described in a class setting, right? That's the content of it, right? Whereas the metadata can describe about, hey, when was this video taken? High resolution, low resolution, right? It's not about the content. It's about describing when was the video taken, right? And or when was it recorded, or resolution of the recording and stuff like that, right? And then each time the recording is played back, you actually have telemetry that actually gets produced, right? So each time it's played back, telemetry is being produced, right?
What data could that be?
So that would be that, hey, Sujit went to that video, played, seeked forward 30 minutes, played for 3 minutes, and then came back 3 days later and then played again.
Got it.
Right? So all that is really how you're interacting with that data, core data, right? Is really telemetry data, right? Different people and different organizations and different roles will have, will play with each of these classes of data differently. Right? So, for example, a person in the sales organization, so for example, right, would say, hey, you know what? Is this content, by the way, interactive enough? Right? Should I actually be caching this more frequently or not? Because it's such a popular video. Right? Those decisions, by the way, can be taken by looking at the telemetry information. Right? There are others who basically are, hey, you know what? You're not even changing the resolution. Most of the devices that you're playing on are low-res devices. So the metadata actually describes that. Right? So why should I actually create 4K video? I'm okay. It's about direct implication to cost, right? I'm just saying these are simple, very simple things for description of the kinds of data. Thereafter, how you analyze the data. For example, you must have heard about auto-annotating, right? The content itself, right? The auto-annotation part is really about, let me use some interesting, without going to technical details, let me use some interesting AI algorithms and analyze the content, right? But then you can say, hey, Prinkan talked about, hey, recommendations. Hey, which other video is linked to this video, right? And which would you want to play next is all metadata. And telemetry is all about, and you can create graphs, literally graphs, which is connected to what, right? That graph, by the way, is nothing but context and intelligence. Any graph, the more you link data up, what did Google do? It linked data of the web, right? So the more you link data up, it becomes a source of intelligence, right? And linked data and source of intelligence can then help with deeper insights.
Okay.
That's how we think about it.
Okay. Samir, Prinkan, you want to add to that?
Well, if I just take what Gaurav said, and it's a fair thing, but this is where the challenge when corporates are trying to internalize or embrace AI or analytics, and I use AI analytics in the same continuum, depends on the maturity of the organization. I think
What is the difference, by the way?
Well, I would say it's a sophistication.
Okay. AI is a little more sophisticated.
Analytics, data science, AI, now Gen AI, because eventually, as Prinkan and Gaurav said, it's about data to decisions. If you've figured out that quest and the nirvana of decisions, then you can use any word, otherwise you can use in the reverse order. I think what's happening is this challenge of organizations trying to emulate, ape each other in the quest of AI supremacy. While the foundational blocks are important, understanding the germane aspect of why organizations need to embrace AI is also very important.
Very good point.
It's not about sometimes just the business metrics or what we say defining the moat or the competitive advantage or coming out with a very secret sauce of using AI. Sometimes it's also about really saying, am I able to put AI in a situation where it will help me reimagine my organization, transform my organization, maybe kind of, let's say, reset my processes. Because there is a fact today that, look, what used to exist in the past is not how. It won't be there, actually. It's very fungible. Every day we are having new chat GPT versions coming in, with the new one being, let's say, Omni, multimodal possibilities of image, voice, text, and data coming in, which also throws the challenges back to the organizations that today, in a very hyper competitive environment, geopolitical, let's say, nature of, I would say, the vagaries of businesses, will AI make us survive for next 10 years? That's the question one needs to ask. And the answer, not just because I've been into this area for the last 20, 25 years, the answer is yes. Because no other technology can actually influence in a very right way what AI can do. But we need to tame the beast. It can go anywhere. And we've all heard about the hallucinations, the guardrails, the ethics, because the other side of AI can create a havoc if not done rightly. And I think that's where organization needs to come out, what I call in my own parlance, AI strategy, which has to be unique, differentiated, nuanced, and absolutely internal to the organization.
And you know what, just to add to that, and we basically say that any organization starting off on a journey of AI strategy must start off with their strategy, by the way, grounded on their data strategy. If they don't have a data strategy, by the way, they're not really collecting the right data, right? They're not organizing it appropriately. They're not even starting it appropriately. Right?
Absolutely.
So that's our viewpoint, and in fact, we share the same viewpoint in the industry, by the way, which is, hey, do you have the right data strategy, right? So just to add to that.
No, absolutely. And data is absolutely, I would say, the ingredient which can make this recipe taste sweet or sour. The choice is yours.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think just to add to that, one thing that when we started LegoAI, we built it with the foundational principle saying that can we use AI itself for this data? So he talked about data strategy, you talked about AI strategy. We said AI-led data strategy, which means fundamentally the metadata and the telemetry data. We in our language call it as the technical metadata, which talks about what the data is, the business metadata, which is a layer of abstraction saying that you might have some geeky column names or geeky jargons in the data, but how can you make it very simple for the businesses that the business understand? So we call it as business metadata. And then we say that operational metadata, which is basically when this data is put to use, it spits out a lot of exhaust. How can we make use of that?
Sure.
So can we really make use of intelligent algorithms in harnessing and connecting these three so that the downstream journey of decision making from this data become completely seamless? Because till now what has been happening is these organizations are relying, like I said in my last point, on armies of skilled talent to build those data pipelines. I mean, you have a very good data engineering team. They will build scalable pipelines which can adapt to different scenarios. But well, you are a large enterprise, you do a merger and acquisition and it's all gone for a toss. Your engineering director will say that it will take 3 years for us to bring all the data into our own Snowflake and data lake and whatnot. But gone are those days. You wait for so long trying to integrate newer systems or believe or trust on the skilled talent to build those sustainable ecosystems, you will lose the race fundamentally.
So you're saying AI can do the
AI
that
can
organization
actually,
of data.
yeah, AI can actually sense from the source systems or the systems that is emitting data. AI can understand what this data is about. It can tell you that whether this data is good or bad. AI can tell you that okay, the data coming in from a system looks like this, but for my business users who are from marketing, from business users who are from sales, they will not understand something called as cust ID. They will understand an account or a party or an opportunity, right? AI has the ability to do that today. AI also has the ability to say that if let's say I'm a bank and my people who are applying loans is coming on my CRM system, on my SFD, and that is getting recorded in some sort of Salesforce.com or some CRM tool, and then when I'm processing their loan, it goes into a loan management system, etc. How do I individually identify that Prinkan has come and applied for this different types of loans, and he has been approved this limit, this is his potential to pay back, etc. Many of these used to happen in a very what we used to call as customer 360, customer 720, by bringing in internal and external data, engineers joining it. In today's world, AI has the ability to sense that there is a Prinkan's presence across 10 different source systems. And this is the relationship, this is the semantic relationship between them. This is the knowledge that you can now leverage to make a decision on what is the next best product you want to offer to Prinkan. What do you want to really upsell? Do you want to cross-sell? Etc., etc.
I think I now understand why you got Prinkan into your accelerator. Is that, I mean, so it simplifies some of your data organization issues significantly.
So that's a good point. That's a great point. We we have been our systems, by the way, have been in the field, are deployed in the field for 30 plus years, right? And every time you deploy and operate a system, any system, by the way, in the field, right, you are generating telemetry. You're generating operational metadata, right? We have been collecting that for 25, 30 years, right? And we have a very large multi-petabyte repository of that. It's complex data. It's dirty data. Dirty because it's not, first of all, that metadata with every version of the system, it evolves, right? The structure evolves. Not every time you get the metadata, so the missing data elements, right? And so it's complex, it's messy, and it's large, right? And it's been a multi-year journey for us to actually gain insight, right, and influence our business operations, by the way. For example, if we were to determine what are the industry best practices, when I say industry, for NetApp systems, that we could actually tell our customers, hey, you know what? Please don't use this. Stay away from this configuration. That's a better configuration, right? 90% of the customers use this. You really want to go there, right? How do we know that? We you know what? We don't need experts for that. Just look at, with that configuration, how have the systems been performing, and recommend that to the others, right? That just brings in customer satisfaction, right? Right there. The number of escalations and the cost of escalation is very high, by the way, right? That just drops dramatically. So you're basically operating your systems much more efficiently. And that's where we need, simplicity of, I would say, managing the data, of course, and analyzing the data, right? That's where, funding companies like LegoAI,
Okay.
right, is very
I get
useful
that.
for us.
No, interesting.
Mhm.
So I wanted to ask you now, if a company has, assuming that they've got the AI strategy in place, they've figured out, okay, this is where I want to apply AI. They got their data collection organization done. Typically, after that, what is the big challenge that they tend to face?
The intent.
Intent, as in?
Intent to really internalize, because somewhere that whole rhythm of challenging the status quo needs to come in when AI strategy gets defined. Because I'll tell you what three big changes will happen when AI strategy gets formed. One, it will provide a segue into reimagining the organization to the next level. Second, it will compel organizations to innovate new product and services. Third, it will transform the businesses. And I'll give some examples out here. When we talk about fintech, insurtech, retail tech, medtech, health tech, what are these businesses? Today, if we pick up a use case of, let's say, a fintech company, the whole idea is to give loans to the undeserved segments of the society. How do you do that? They don't have a CIBIL score. They don't have a credit worthiness kind of, let's say, scoring profiling. Now, they're coming out with those systems where, to Gaurav's point, that data assimilation process is messy, complex, absolutely cumbersome, but they're going to the extent of saying, look, if we start taking, let's say, data from their social media, even data how they transact through the credit cards, if they have kind of a thing, or data what they are kind of, let's say, doing in terms of the consumption of their electricity bill. Those are the data points which gets determining and knowing what's the nature of the profile of that particular consumer could be if they give those loans and all. Now, healthcare companies are going ahead and trying to create new, what I call care management systems, uniquely for each and every kind of, let's say, patient. Let's say, assuming Gaurav, me, and Prinkan, God forbid, have COVID again. Why the treatment has to be same? Now we are seeing the side impacts of taking those kind of injections and pills, what we did, because it just came out of nowhere. Now, this is where we realize that, look, somewhere organizations have to think in their own very specific, nuanced way what AI can do for them. Which is where once that intent, once that challenging the status quo coming, reimagining the businesses as the strategy starts coming in, the other thing as a part of important, significant milestone is governance, ethics, compliance, guardrails.
Yep.
And that's nuanced. Today, why banks have been the front runner in internalizing AI?
Yep.
Because they have created a very sophisticated way of saying, look, this is how the guardrails, the ethics, the playbooks of risk mitigation will play out. And which is where I would say the industry segments which are still embracing AI, like manufacturing or let's say healthcare, haven't figured it out.
Yeah, I totally agree, because when you're processing data, by the way, right? Who is allowed to process data, right? Data, by the way, can contain privacy-sensitive information. Should I be sending this data outside a certain domain? Should that person, by the way, be consuming this data at all to create his model? Once the model is created, that has, by the way, information which is private to me, right? Is that allowed or not, right? Ethics play in. How do I, the right to forget, by the way, is very important, right?
Gaurav,
So
there's also a challenge, just to chime
Yeah.
in what you said.
Sure.
Absolutely important. But sometimes, if you see some instances where practitioners
Yeah.
have gone ahead and started with the risk
Yeah.
profiling and mitigation first. That's not the correct way.
Right.
Because then you're defeating the whole purpose of what I say, the real genie of AI
Yeah.
not coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, what we call infinite possibility at scale with AI
Yeah.
should first be discovered.
Uh-huh.
And then those governance mechanisms should come in.
The guardrails
Because
come
if
in
it's
later.
Like,
Right.
I would say from bottom to top, then you're not really hitting the the real crux of what AI can do.
True, very
Then
true.
it's what we call minuscule POCs, gigs, and engagements.
Yep. Nice. I totally agree.
Prinkan, you want to add to that?
No, I think absolutely aligned, because see what happens is whether it's AI or any other new technology that comes in, there is obviously two different school of thoughts. One saying that okay, this is the next path-breaking thing. It happened obviously during the dot-com bubble, but also during blockchain, which did not take off in a way as everyone assumed it to. And on the other side, there is another school of thought saying that, hey, we have to be really careful because it entails data which is sensitive to the enterprise and whatnot. But if you look at the history of how any great innovation has happened, if you put too many boundaries and guardrails in the beginning itself, and Samir rightly said that, it's very difficult to bring out the real value out of that in particular innovation. But at the same time, what has to happen, or what's very important is when we are talking about enterprises and applying some of these innovations which can do wonders, we have to always be careful because that has a significant impact on the brand, on the customers of that using that brand, and therefore there has to be a certain kind of guardrail, certain kind of governance, certain kind of I would say strategies around democratization to a larger piece of the organization or to the end users when you are particularly implementing it for an enterprise. I'll give you one simple example. When ChatGPT was released, people were all gaga about, okay, it can generate great content, it can generate code. I know a lot of dev teams in engineering organizations, they were absolutely fascinated by it, and so my team was. But here is the thing. When you take that same capability and apply it in an enterprise context, the problem with AI that we have always seen, and if you go back 5 years back when I actually built the first solution in my career where Alexa was able to talk to multiple Tableau and ClickSense dashboards, right? The problem with this kind of sophisticated technology is you ask it 3 questions, 2 questions it answers correctly, this third one it does not, or it hallucinates. You start losing users' trust and belief slowly, right? Now, in order to overcome this,
There is a difference between Prinkle, why this happened, just to chime in.
yeah, sure, go ahead.
Sophistication of image, voice, text, and video is to mimic the human brain that AI is doing.
Yeah.
But what AI is not able to do still so far is to act like a heart. So
True.
when brain and a heart works together, Gaurav, magic can happen.
True.
Very
It
true,
does
man.
that human expectations or even in an enterprise setup, client expectations, when you have seen some magic happening on the ChatGPT interface, says that, okay, get this and implement within my ecosystem, and it's the same magic wand that's going to work, but it will not. In reality, it will not, because there are a lot of constraints when you operate in an enterprise environment. So essentially the point I'm trying to make is, given that one would have thought that or started the thought process with a skepticism that what I'm going to build as this brain, will it work in an enterprise context? They would have never been able to build that brain or mimic that human brain. At the same time, if someone says that, hey, okay, this brain is there, now let's come and plug and play it and in my enterprise setup and everything will work beautifully, that's also not going to happen as well. So on one scale of the spectrum, there is innovation, which needs thoughts which are not bounded, and on the other spectrum, you have its application in a very specific enterprise context, which needs a lot of thinking through that. How do you really take care of security, compliance, governance, And the point that you said, intent, I will also add to it adoption. When I'm releasing a solution which is powered by some of this next gen technology, I have to be very careful that my users are able to adapt to that change, because we all understand that SARA model of any business change, right? Already your users are nervous, they are in shock that something new is going to replace their job. Now when someone is already having that inherent bias of skepticism and you give them a new system which can do wonders, they will always think of, okay, what is that one thing that did not work even if the 9 things have worked? So how do you put the right balance between the two to say that, hey, I am bringing in this new wonder boy in front of an audience who is already under certain kind of sense of shock and rejection? How do I still make this work? How do I take those baby steps? I think that is very important.
It's so contextual to what Prinkan said, actually. I think the biggest challenge, Sujit, is not about AI systems being curated. The biggest challenge is the adoption. 1 out of 7 algorithms gets adopted. 6 of them, for whatever reason, doesn't get adopted or they get aborted. Efforts are the same, by the way, to build those algorithms, 7 of them. And I take that particular
within
case.
an enterprise, if they're developing
Within an enterprise. That's the thumb rule. As practitioners, we know that kind of a thing. But here is the challenge. Why does it happen that algorithms or these AI systems put into the practice do not see the desired or the requisite results? And there is an answer to that. AI essentially is a black box. Doesn't have any emotions or patterns as such which it can forecast on its own. Now, I'll give an example. I don't want to name that company. A very large payment gateway uses AI to really what I call detect frauds, because they have those point of sale transactions, millions of that happening every second across the globe. And they have 3 seconds on that POS machine to detect a fraud. Now, they still deployed a cognitive neuroscientist and behavioral scientist to really ask that person, why do frauds happen? It's like going into the minds of the scamsters to really first detect what is the root cause why these frauds are happening, and then put in those AI system for fraud mitigation. So which is where I think that eventually it's a human and an AI intelligence which has to work together to give that desired result. Just producing that very glamorous set of systems in AI per se will not work.
Okay. Since all of you started referring to Gen AI, give us an idea. I mean, what is the new thing that Gen AI brought versus what the AI that was there before Gen AI? Is it that Gen AI kind of improves everything that the previous AI could do? Or give us a sense, and what should organizations be thinking about when they look at Gen AI?
So I will take a very classic example. So this is what happens. At the end of the day, any AI system that you build has to be consumed by us humans. And we are the humans who are in some sense building this AI system. And certain aspects of it are obviously not transparent. It's a black box, like Samir said. Now, when you are interacting with with a system, it's primarily about human and machine interaction. That's what generative AI has taken to a large extent a notch up from the previous standard machine learning or predictive AI or prescriptive AI kind of systems that existed. I will give you one example. I was talking about that business case where I was creating a boardroom solution where there's an Alexa and there are all these dashboards and different kind of insights that are built by developers. And someone can ask and say that, tell me how I am performing in this region, or how are my top line metrics doing, etc. In a situation where there was no generative AI, there was no language or large language model in place, if you would have asked a question that how is my business doing, AI doesn't understand the meaning of doing, because AI needs to be very specifically told that what is the intent of the user. AI cannot decipher the intent of the user from this blanket statement. But if I go and ask, tell me how is my sales performing in the South region, or how I am doing in North America compared to last year this time, AI will understand. In today's world, what has happened is with large language models, AI has been able to create the several layers of, or right, I would say, demystify the several layers of language abstraction between a human and a machine. Today, if I go and ask a AI that how is my business doing, you can still contextualize it, but AI has its capability to decipher that what is the potential intent of this user. When someone is talking about business doing, maybe they are talking about their top 5 top line metrics around EBITDA, revenue growth, etc., profit, productivity, etc. And you obviously have a lot of mechanisms to contextualize, saying that when a CEO asks the same question, why, versus when a category or a brand manager is asking that question, how the answer should change. Those were very difficult to do in a non-generative AI era.
So let me try and break that down a bit. Just to add to go a step backwards on the statements over here, which is what's fundamentally different in Gen AI, right? Is that you don't have to go down the path of looking at because what was the flow earlier, pre-Gen AI? You always started with your data. You started with a question in mind, of course, right? What is it that you're seeking to answer? Otherwise, don't start a project. If you don't have a question to ask, please don't start an AI project. It's wasteful. But you always started with, thereafter you started with looking at the data, right? Hey, I think I'll need this data, right? And then you'll evolve from there, right? And then you brought in some experts who knew about what the data is about, who know about the domain knowledge of that part, right? Now, experts are expensive, right? And each time you do this to answer one question, right? This flow to answer just one question, if your question changes, maybe your data changes, maybe your experts change, the entire flow, by the way, you have to replicate, right? And it's not just replicable as in cookie cutter, right?
Gaurav, you are eating into my bread and butter. This is exactly what I do for my living, actually.
Cool, man, right? So the whole point is, and that's the shift, by the way, that's happening.
Absolutely.
Which is you're basically saying, hey, you know what? You don't have to create these, one solution, point solutions. With the emergence of, I wouldn't call it LLM, I would just call it foundational models, right? Stanford calls it that, so let's just use that, right? It's almost an industry standard terminology there. That foundational model, by the way, is capable of solving multitude of these problems earlier. It'll get you to 80 to 90% there. Thereafter, go fine-tune based on your data, based on the questions that you need, right? The amount of saving that you'll get, by the way, right, in your whole AI journey is going to be stupendous, right? But it's not a magic wand. I'm just comparing with what was and what is now with Gen AI out there. Right? That is why the buzz is real, right? It's not just a passing phase. It's real.
Very interesting. I mean, so Samir, what has it simplified things a lot? Do organizations have to now think differently from what they were doing 1.5 years ago when ChatGPT came up and everybody started talking about Gen AI? Do organizations have to start thinking very differently now?
So it's so fascinating what Gaurav mentioned, and I take this example. A few months back, I was doing an AI strategy masterclass session for one of our large Indian conglomerate, and the board members were there, business leaders were there, and during one of the lunch break, one of a very well-reckoned board member, I can't name, was there, and I met him. I said, "Why are you here?" Because that was a 6-hour session. He said, "Look, Samir, I'll tell you. 2 days back, or rather 3 days back, before he told me, he said he was sitting with his wife and his mother-in-law, and his mother-in-law was using ChatGPT, and she asked a particular feature about ChatGPT with him. He wasn't aware. His wife gave a response. And he said that's why he's here in the masterclass." So first is this fear of missing out is big.
Yeah.
To the point, so just to paraphrase, when business leaders, corporate enterprises were trying to solve a problem, they used to call it like, look, we are data rich, information poor, insight starved. data rich, information poor, insight starved. Can you help solve our problem?
Yeah.
Now with Chat GPT or Gen AI, or rather call it Gen AI, it's like, can you help us take decisions? Faster, better, much more, I would say, repetitive. So which means today, for everything what we do, there is a innate ability for Gen AI to do the same, which is where mimicking the brain in a corporate environment is actually challenging everyone. We take it on our ego, we take it as a competitive kind of a, let's say, advantage, if we really call it in that spirited way. Or we say, look, can we define the new levels of how intelligence can be used or reconfigured in the boardrooms of business? I think this is where organizations will have no now qualms, but first to really understand their data. To the point what Gaurav said, that it's been into the trenches for long. They never looked at building a foundational data layer, understanding what we call the veracity. Now they are very, very conscious about, look, because that data is so intrinsic to them. Instead of they using external data. And that's a different thing, because with so much of guzzling of data, synthetic data needs to be generated. And that's where a lot of labeling, annotation, Gaurav, what you and me were discussing, needs to happen.
Yep. Yeah. So, Samik, just to double down on that, if you don't mind, and I'll intersect with what you were saying earlier, which is about, hey, you know what? A individual using, let's say, ChatGPT, right, for lack of a better thing out there, let's say ChatGPT, and using that same insights that ChatGPT is giving you in an enterprise context. Can't I? Right? And that's the huge gap, right? Because if this guy starts to hallucinate, right, which is get hallucinations is nothing but getting creative, right? Can I use the insights and the recommendations that the guy is giving in an enterprise context where I'm probably going to take that stuff and decide and make it an action? That can be very expensive if it's wrong. So how do I reduce or bridge the gap, right? That is, how do I go from, hey, it's giving me an insight, that's great, but hey, it better be correct. It better be meaningful. It better be actionable, because I want to take action, right? So what does it mean from an enterprise context? You brought that up earlier, right? Yeah. What does it mean from an enterprise context, right? That is where the techniques that are being talked about, how do we actually bring the right enterprise context, marry that with the LLMs, right? So that when the LLM is telling you something, it is relevant to the enterprise context. There are various techniques of doing that.
So I've been hearing of things like RAG and all that. I mean, so
absolutely,
those work
knowledge
very
graphs.
Well, are they?
So knowledge graphs, for example, is an example of how you can actually enrich the context. I talked about earlier about linked data. Let's connect the dots here, right? I talked about earlier about linked data, right? Because if data is actually linked in an organization, you know that how this data element relates to the other, right? So the whole data is a graph, essentially, right? So now call that a knowledge graph. That knowledge graph essentially is carrying context of the organization, right? I take this context and I marry this with the LLMs, right? Now what I get out, because now I'm interacting with the LLM, with the context being supplied. And the hope is, and it's a reality now, the hope and the reality over there is that the insights that I thus get as a result of this is very close to, the insights that I would otherwise have taken a long time to get to that, right? That's what is then changing in inflection, right? In leveraging, LLMs in the enterprise context.
So it's possible to get to that level of accuracy and all that today?
Getting there. Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We keep on saying, Sujit, AI or Gen AI is not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
In the sense that things could get wrong, so you have to be really careful and diligent about how you build it, is it?
Absolutely. It's surgical. So anything, when you do something with the body anatomy, think of this.
Yeah.
Any wrong insertion anywhere can go wrong. This is how it is, kind of a thing. And Gaurav is right. This is where it's an inflection point. It can go to any level. And that's why you see it's not about corporates, society, countries as we speak. 68 countries have their own AI policy. It's never we're sitting at the cusp of an AI revolution, that's for sure. And when any revolution comes in, we've seen those agriculture or I would say software or even mechanical, and pardon our age as well, which stay. I mean, the nature of the jobs, the how the alignment of society, corporates, humanity will happen will be unprecedented.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So phenomenal, accurate predictions possible, but great analogy. I mean, like a surgical procedure, you have to do it very, very well. I just wanted to bring in the whole issue of skills. All of this, of course, I mean, the speed at which some of these technologies are changing, Gen AI suddenly changed the whole conversation around AI. I wanted to ask all of you in skills that enterprises today have, is it possible to upskill them, or do you also need to bring in talent from outside with very specific kind of skills? What is the route that you normally see people adopting? What is your recommendation, and what kinds of skills are we talking about here?
So, so it really depends upon the fact that what you are trying to do with AI. So there are enterprises, or rather, any enterprise can, in my sense, take three paths. Either they can say that there are some ready-made AI. So let's say there are open source models, foundational models out there. I take it and I use it for solving a particular business use case, or I create a specific application to solve a particular problem. The other could be that, hey, I want to take something which is a base model and build my own foundational model, because I believe I am in an industry or a sector where none of the existing foundational models are trained well enough, and therefore if I do it, I can go beyond the park, right? And I can be called as a leader. And then there is another kind of companies who are basically saying that I will just make some calls to OpenAI API service, or Anthropic LLM, or some LLM hosted service, and create a nice UI, and I will leave with it. So it really depends upon what you are doing. So if you are talking about, and each one of these three needs very different kinds of skill sets, right? And I'm right now talking only about language models, or the so-called generative AI category of models. There are different other kinds of models, needs different kind of skill sets. But fundamentally, if you are talking about that, I want to build a very specific use case with some base model, all you are fundamentally talking about is people who understands your business domain so well and can write very efficient prompts. That's one. And second is people who, again, who are subject matter experts and understand the business domain so well, who can take your enterprise data and create that context for that business case. The second kind of where you are trying to build a foundational model, you actually need a lot of data, and therefore you need people who can annotate those data to create a very fine-tuned model specific to your business domain context. Maybe you are talking about building an LLM model that can parse architectural plans very accurately, right? And therefore you actually need architects who can sit with the data annotators and label different aspects of how they design architectural plans. And then you are talking...
These kind of LLMs require a lot of funds, does it?
A lot of...
This is the OpenAI kind of LLM? Or they are much
not really the scale of OpenAI, because they are more trying to build generic models, and therefore they are not restricted to a domain. They are gathering data from all around the world. So for an example, when OpenAI said that our GPT-3 is capable of generating code very accurately, they basically took all the data on GitHub and some Stack Overflow, and they basically annotated and trained it, right?
But to your point, yes, it does. It's a money guzzler. It's a money
but not
guzzler.
at the scale of OpenAI. So think that if OpenAI is talking about catering to 10 different domains, creating artificial general intelligence over a period of time, you are talking about 1/10 of that cost, because you are talking about one domain. And then you have that third category that I talked about. You are basically saying, hey, I want to make something which has a nice user interface, conversational in nature or interactive in nature. At the back end, I already have AGI created by some of these organizations. I just want to do API integrations. You just need engineers to do that, to solve that kind of a problem. So it really depends. Now, coming to the enterprise context, I think the most important thing, and none of these three is lesser than the other. Everyone has its own importance. In an enterprise context, it is very important for an enterprise to say, what is my expectation from the AI that I'm trying to build? In terms of my AI first strategy, if I am talking about new business model, if I'm talking about productivity gains, if I'm talking about customer experience or whatever metric of digital transformation, etc., what is my objective? And based on that objective, then you need to take a call on how you want to go about it in terms of upskilling the people. Upskilling existing people, absolutely, it's not a rocket science. It's just a matter of time. But again, one needs to, today there is a lot of misconception about, and people confuse often about what a generative AI model can do versus a standard AI model can do. And
I'll just give an example. I totally agree with that. I'll just give an example on this, right? In one of the products that we are building at NetApp, using leveraging AI, we just could not break the barrier of approximately 75% precision, right? So there are two metrics that are very commonly used, just precision, and the other one is recall. And we could not break the barrier of 75% and let's say around 50% for recall. Just couldn't do it, right? Because we didn't have the right people at that point in time.
Really?
Now, so when you have to or want to challenge that numbers, because you need a solution. Now you want to challenge, hey, is it good enough for your customer base? If you're trying to position a product of this nature in a regulated industry, it will not fly at all, right? You brought in the right skill sets. That number, by the way, both precision and recall, it's really surprising when both 99% plus.
Wow. So what skills were those?
Right? So we brought in data scientists who've actually solved problems elsewhere in the industry. They have that experience, right? They brought in the no fancy models out there, but you have the right tools. They're thinking about it, on the sidelines you're talking. Don't have to think like a computer science engineer. You have to think like a ML data scientist. Very different. Let the data and the algorithm help you out. Don't intervene with it. It's a very different way of thinking, right? So a data scientist, by the way, an ML engineer and a computer science engineer, they're three different things. Each have the space, right? But what the data scientist can do for you, by the way, right, is just this particular example, right? It was fantastic. And now we have a fantastic product in the cyber resilience space that we've gone public with.
Okay.
Well, it's so interesting what Gaurav and Prinkan said. And as an anecdote, my daughter was asking me what kind of jobs will exist next few years. I said, look, by the time you will actually start working, first of all the problems
How old is your
possible
daughter?
which could be solved using AI.
Your daughter is how old?
She's into 10th, she's 16 years old, so possibly maybe next few years. I said by the time she will just move out of the college and start working, first of all the possible problems which could be solved using AI or Gen AI would have been solved. So your job first of all will be to create problems which can be solved using AI or Gen AI. Paradoxically, if you pick up the LinkedIn profile of the professionals outside today, everyone is a Gen AI expert today. Now, that's a different fact that only 1 out of 30, correct me if I'm wrong, Prinkan, when you interview people, only 1 out of 30 candidates get selected.
Sure.
So there is that gap. On other side, look at the commentaries and the narratives which is coming out from the companies who for the first time are saying, Gen AI is making us lose jobs. We are not able to kind of add people because we are losing job because of Gen AI. And that's happened if you look at the financial commentary of many of these tech firms or even legacy firms actually. So this is something for the real, let's accept. Second, it's upending the whole job market. And Gaurav, me and Prinkan were discussing on the sidelines that even the experts of AI analytics today have no option but to start embracing that. Look, they are not experts now.
Really?
Because something which we used to take pride in building models
Yeah.
is democratized. It's all part of, let's say, those AI system which is inbuilt. And today it's not just Chat GPT. There are 500 different other tools and techniques using Gen AI which are in the market. It's in the market today. So think of this, I think, as
So what's the path for them?
create new problems. The path is today, it's all about how can you look at the fastest way to solve the problems. Whether it's a Gen AI or an AI or a cognitive neuroscience or a kind of, let's say, a visualization, it's immaterial, which means that the skill sets will go for a change right from elementary school to college to the corporate environment because it's also going into the business function. Today, a finance head can say, look, I'll create a repository like an LLM which can solve everything what I'm looking. Same for HR, same for supply chain. Now, how fast or accelerated it happens, who all will be in the fray in terms of the job skills, that needs to be seen.
Okay. Quick one to all three of you. Educational institutions and our youth. What should they now focus on? I mean, given the kind of things that AI can do, and as Samir was saying, I mean, a lot of jobs will be done by AI at the end of the day.
Okay, so that's a great question, and I see youngsters go after the newest and the freshest thing out there. Don't let go of fundamentals. Fundamentals will stay. They will evolve, but they will actually keep you alive for the next 30 years, right? Be on a learning journey, right? For example, I've been nearly 30 years in the industry. Just completed a course on ISI, deep learning, right?
Absolutely.
That's an example, right? Never stop learning, right? So that's what I would advise.
In my perspective, I think it's this entire wave or bubble or whatever you call it of AI obviously has a very good and bad aspect to it. In from the good terms, obviously it has been democratized to a level where even a school kid or anyone for that matter can really go and use it for free. And that's great because it is no more restricted to a very privileged audience anymore. Bad because a lot of times people or kids, they intend to blindly trust it, which is, even though there is a disclaimer in most of these products that they use, which is dangerous. So I would say that for the youth, it is really important to do a stress test. They have some good amount of time in their career. Good amount of time till they get to the professional career, and they have that privilege where they can use. While we are all already professionals, where we have to adapt it and make use of it to stay relevant in the industry. They still have the time to stress test it out rigorously and say that what this AI cannot do, which I can look at as the next opportunity of my career to make it do. What is the next best foundational model I can build? Or what is it that the AI cannot do that I can complement? And you have people of different kinds, right? You have people who are techies, you have people who are probably not techies, but they are very good in particular subject matter area. They can really say, hey, general intelligence, great. To make it relevant for such kind of clients, they need the domain expertise. What if I learn that domain expertise and we coexist and we make money out of it? And then there are those techies who says that, okay, OpenAI built whatever they have built, and there are a certain set of companies who are in the rat race of adding trillions and zillions of parameters. Can I think of a whole new technology and paradigm to make language model work, which are much more sustainable, which are much more sustainable in terms of energy, in terms of cost, in terms of everything? I think it's really exciting how young brains can think, and they are actually privileged to be living in an era where they have good amount of time to stress test it out and really know where they can tweak their stuff to get an edge.
I love that. Yep.
Fascinating. Samir, you want to add
So,
anything
first
to
of all, I must say that Gaurav and me are not qualified to respond to this question. It's a transgenerational gap what we have in terms of what the kids see
Yeah.
and foresee actually. Because see, first of all, I'm of this firm belief what Prinkan said. They're far more smart than what we think. Unfortunately, with all due regards, academic institutions have a lot of catching up to really have those kids marry what is contextualized in terms of learning than conceptual. Now, when we talk about, to your question, Sujit, it's about creator economy. Influencers today, whether it's for finance or let's say for beauty or wellness, the average age is just about 20 to 23. Did we think about that as a possible career 3 years, 4 years back? No. And it's all coming because of the AI, the ability of Instagram to produce those new categories. Similarly, I think if you ask a kid today largely what they see about AI, they'll say, look, we want to solve the problem of justice. You've got so many cases. Why it's not happening? My mama and father are fighting for this for quite some time. Why those cases are pending over there? Weather forecast. Everyone said it will rain in Bangalore 5 months back. It only rained. Everyone said about the exit polls. Why no AI is being used over there? So I think they are picking up those problems which we don't see. And that's where I think that ability to spot what I call unforeseeable trends is what they will do. Whether they do it as a part of the corporate, as a part of being entrepreneur, or as a part of, let's say, a gig worker, that's a separate question.
Absolutely. No, AI is
Very
changing
nice.
the world in fundamental ways. Everybody will have to rethink, as all of you said, spot all those, but there are still plenty of opportunities. It's a matter of spotting those opportunities. Wonderful discussion. Not, of course, the main discussion was on how enterprises need to travel this path. And like all of you said, there are big challenges involved, but there are equally solutions to all of those challenges. And we are getting to a stage where AI is able to make those decisions, make those predictions in ways much faster than what human beings have ever been able to
Sure.
do. So that's a journey that every enterprise, every company will need to chart. And thanks to all of you for a wonderful discussion. I think the first time that we are going into such depth into the whole AI phenomenon. Thank you,
I loved it.
Samir.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you, Sujit.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thanks,
Thank
Ajay.
you.